Hi, Gus again. I'm Graham Martin. I'm the Recruitment Guy. We're here today outside what a lot of people call the Houses of Parliament. In fact, it's the Palace of Westminster. And Big Ben is not the tower, it's actually the bell that chimes on the hour. We're here today to meet Nick de Bois, who's the MP for Enfield North. We're here today to find out exactly what it takes to become an MP. Let's go. And we're in the Hall of Westminster, at the Palace of Westminster, which most people think of being the Houses of Parliament. The building goes back to over 1,000 years. It's where Charles I was tried, it's where Henry VIII played tennis, and it's where the Pope, the Queen and Barack Obama have addressed the MPs. In fact, there are 650 MPs in the UK, so we're really privileged to get the opportunity to ask a real live MP, how did you become an MP? So first off, have you always been an MP?
No, not at all. I only became an MP in 2010 when I was elected for the first time. Admittedly, I had been trying for a little longer than that, but before that, back in 1990, I set about running my own business.
So you're in business first?
Yeah, very much. And actually, I recommend this as a background. Whatever you do, don't become a career politician. So I started and ran a small business, exhibition design and management company, and by 2010, it was big enough to run itself.
So what made you think, you know what, I want to go from running a business, a successful business, to actually representing a community and becoming an MP?
Well, what first got me into it was in 1990, when we actually had a Conservative government, the party that I belonged to. I wanted to start my business. I had no money, no background, no sort of silver spoon waiting for me to use.
Yep.
And there were lots of talk about government schemes all out there to help you. And I dug and I dug and I dug, and it was rubbish. It just didn't deliver. It was rhetoric not matching reality. And I just made a mental note. One day, if I'm lucky enough to make it in business, I'd like to try and do something about that so it's easier for other people.
And how did you actually apply? You can't just apply to be an MP. What happens? It's very different to a normal job, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a bit strange. Most people get involved with their voluntary party, but to start with, you write to the party headquarters and you say, I'd like to be an MP and this is why. They then go through an interview process. They sent me on a 3-day course, a bit like officer selection for the army used to be. It may still be. And then after that, you go on an approved candidates list. If you are on the approved candidates list, you are free to apply for any vacancy that comes up, which is normally a seat that's currently held by another political party.
So then you're in competition to be voted in, if you like. So it was 3 attempts before you became an MP, is that right?
Absolutely, but that after I was selected by my constituency party in 1999, I stood in the 2001 election. And reasons I stood there were still very much based on what I've just told you. But of course, as times progressed, so has my view of being an MP. And I got a bit stubborn. I thought, they can't reject me twice. They're going to have to learn to live with me.
Third time lucky.
Third time lucky.
So what does an MP do? I know your day, your week, your month, your year is very varied, but just try and give me a flavour for what you do.
Well, I've made a decision that I actually want to be, first and foremost, a representative of the constituency and try and improve the quality of life for constituents. So I focus on constituency issues. Our main job, though, is to vote legislation through. We are lawmakers. Some of those lawmakers go and become executives in the government and they become ministers of state. So for me, I spend the afternoon pretty much in the chamber discussing and voting on legislation, or examining it in detail in what's called committee. A lot of people will say, I don't see any MPs in the House of Commons. Well, that's because a lot of us are upstai's scrutinising legislation
looking at the paper.
and the detail.
So I get the feeling it's not a 9-to-5 job, is it?
Very much not so.
Realistically, what is your day like in terms of hours, or your week even?
Monday and Tuesday, I am often here by about 9 o'clock, depending, can be a bit earlier, can be a bit later. Well, I get home probably about 12 o'clock. We leave the House of Commons after the final votes, which can be any time between 10 and 11 o'clock at night.
So it's a long day.
On the Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday's a bit earlier, Thursday's pretty much the same, so we tend to get home around 8:30. Friday's what they call constituency day.
So you're back in your constituency on Friday, and what do you do at the weekends? Feet up watching TV or?
Well, it would be nice, but I mix it. So some weekends I will have off, and I recommend that to anyone, but there's a lot of constituency engagements. When you become an MP, you find out so many things going on that quite a lot of people just don't know. Organisations that will, for example, do a talking newspaper that is designed for blind people.
Yeah.
So it's great. You go along, you support them, you get them a bit of publicity. You do a lot of that stuff.
So in terms of your opportunity to progress, you talked about becoming a minister. For some MPs, you may wish to stay, support your constituency. how many ministers are there out of 650
Well,
MPs?
if you assume that to form a government you need at least 326 MPs, so you have a majority, so you can get your legislation through. We're in coalition, so out of a total number of MPs about 360, about 130 are what we call payroll, i.e. they are ministers in the government or PPSs, parliamentary private secretaries, and that's, if you like, the career progression for those that wish to become ministers. Very honourable thing to do. You can achieve quite a lot, obviously, as a minister.
But it's not for everybody.
No, it's not for everybody. And to be fair, when I started at, I must have been about 40-something, I thought the way to get things done is to be a minister. I've changed my mind a lot, and the last 18 months have perhaps proved that wasn't altogether
So on the
a bad idea.
backbenches, they call it, is that
Yeah,
right?
backbenches, yeah.
And you can be a little bit more radical on occasion if you wish
can,
to be?
yes, you can. I suppose if I wanted to sound sort of a little bit haloistic, if there's such a word here, I'd be saying you can vote with your conscience sometimes, which means you vote against your party, as I did once or twice recently.
What's the best bit of the job for you?
Well, I would say the best bit of the job is actually, first of all, when you get here, you realise that you are at the heart of democracy and you can stand up and speak for your constituent. Best moment for me in some respects was coming out of the riots that we had in Enfield, one of the few places to have them. People on that night said, when you get to Parliament, you let the Prime Minister know this is what we think. 3 days later, I was able to stand up and replay those conversations to the Prime Minister House. Great thing. Other things are some successes. Today's a big day. We are moving a knife crime amendment. We're trying to help cure this plague of knife crime which has hit London particularly. Today I've got an amendment in Parliament. Tonight I'll be speaking to that amendment and I hope it will get passed into law.
So what's the worst bit of the job?
When you fail, and I'm one of those MPs who will not try and tell you everything's been fantastic. If you fail, you really feel it personally. We are human beings at the end of the day, and you have to read messages that come to you that aren't particularly nice, and it's a tough call. But you've got to have a thick skin.
So you're not here to be popular, here to get a job done for the majority of your constituents.
I'd like to be popular, but it doesn't happen because you do end up either having to explain tough decisions, or sometimes you don't quite succeed at things.
So in terms of money, I always ask people what the money is. Of course, your money is on public record, but what would an MP earn?
If you come in as an MP, you earn, and I'll be slightly vague here, it's about 66,000. If you're a London MP, you get what's called the London Waiting Allowance, which takes you up to about 69. That's the basic salary that you get.
And you can become a minister, and of course there are different grades. What opportunities are there for people?
Well, I think a Prime Minister, if I'm right, earns about 150,000. Junior ministers will probably earn around another 10,000 on the basic salary, so they'll be on something like 75, 76. The next level of minister will earn something like another 15,000, so he'll be taking up to about 90,000 a year, and then you obviously start getting to
and a lot of responsibility and a lot of pressure for those roles.
Well, if you think about it, you can be elected as an MP, you come from whatever walk of background. If you're selected to run a department, you're running a department of thousands of people, such as the health service, the education service, defence, and there you are. It's a tall order, a tough job. Of course, you have a lot of staff around you.
With all the issues about the euro, people involved, political and economic decisions. If somebody wanted to become an MP or just get involved in politics as a career, what would you suggest that would be a good place to start?
Well, the first place to start is, why do you want to become an MP? Really ask yourself that question. If it is just to sit in here and get your presence into the chamber and sit on the green benches, that isn't enough. That is merely the beginning of what you are trying to do. It is a means to an end. But assuming you understand why you want to be an MP, look around, decide which party is closest to your views. They won't match you entirely. Choose the closest. Work with your local association. Get to understand how political decisions affect people on the street. And from that point on, you start to build up an understanding. Work with your local party, do some campaigning, see what you're like on the doorstep. You knock on a door, some people don't like that, knocking on a door and saying, hello, I'm the local candidate or whatever, what do you think of this? They'll tell you in no uncertain terms. Get used to that whole process, but live. Have a life before you become an MP. I personally don't want to see more professional politicians. I want to see people who've been out there, done things from all walks of life. It doesn't really matter. And then we have a good mix in the House of Commons.
That's great. Well, there you go. What more can I say? A fantastic, probably more than 5 minutes, but some really good information. For people that are interested in a career in politics, this has been essential. If you want to become an MP, who better to hear from it from our MP, Nick Bois. Thank you very much. So kind.
Really good.
Graham Martin, the Recruitment Guy. Say goodbye.